members, you'll feel like a big deal. Prime Big Deal Days, 8 to 13 October.
My day at the country fair was filled with furry friends at a petting zoo. Loads of activities, stacks of show bags and new rides just for kids. Lots of music to move to, and I even got to meet Casey Barnes. We ate the bestest country barbecue and went on lots of fun adventures. My favourite part of all? Sharing it with you.
It's the home of family fun and so many worlds in one, including Country Fair, these school holidays. Grab your tickets today at dreamworld.com.au.
Tonight, a trail of destruction in the northern suburbs as a family's terrorised by a gang armed with machetes. Wild ride, how a yacht ran aground on South Road. School holiday fears for SA families as Qantas workers walk off the job. A great carb shortfall, the South Aussies who aren't eating anywhere near enough. And a premiership party for the Kings of the Jungle as the Swans limp out of Melbourne.
Live from Adelaide.
And 7 plus at 8:50 p.m. The one-of-a-kind crystal unearthed by Aussie treasure hunters. How much is it worth? That's next. Also ahead, when bulldozers moved into SA vineyards, why grape growers were once paid to pull their vines. And the French Spider-Man who took on a skyscraper with rubber shoes and some chalk. On Flashback this week, we're pulling the cork on a curious and quite dark chapter of the state's wine history. Back in the 80s, some growers were actually paid by the government to pull out their vines.
The Barossa Valley is a jewel in South Australia's crown, with vines dating back to the 1840s.
And certainly in world terms, we would be one of the great repositories of very old vineyard.
But in the early 80s, times were really tough. There was a major oversupply of grapes.
Leo Kennedy of Nuriutpa is probably the hardest hit grape grower in the Barossa Valley. You've got 220 tonnes here that you could pick. You can only pick 20 tonne. What are you going to do with the rest?
Well, it'll just have to hang.
There was just too many grapes and not enough buyers.
Legendary winemaker Charlie Melton says things were grim and the outlook for many was pessimistic.
Quite a bit of old, good, fine old material came out.
We drink about 19.8 litres of wine per person a year, but unfortunately that's just not enough.
We're part of a world scene in which more wine is being produced than is being drunk.
Some wine growers have yet to be paid for surplus wine, which wineries crushed in 1979.
We were promised to be paid this year, but so far it hasn't come.
I'll be able to keep going, but for how long I don't know.
So the government came up with the Vine Pool scheme.
The government would pay $3,000 per acre if you only pulled out part of your vineyard, but they would pay $5,000 an acre if you pulled out all of your vineyard.
It proved very enticing for those up against the wall, not just in the Barossa, but other regions like Clare.
Bruce Slee received $44,000 to remove 18 hectares of vines, but he was one of the lucky ones. The state government underestimated the number of growers who would utilise the scheme and says it only has limited resources left to help other growers.
Charlie Melton was among a group of Barossa winemakers who did what they could to preserve and protect the old vines, seeing their long-term value.
Everyone talks about a sense of place with wine, and the reason they talk about that is because many of the famous wine regions all over the world have that sense of place.
The late Peter Lehman, another.
A lot of people were saying the Barossa floor should restrict itself to growing vegetables. Lo and behold, look at it.
It's a dangerous thing when the government starts getting involved in commercial decisions.
At the height of the crisis, Charlie Melton set up his own label and, along with others, rekindled demand for premium fruit. The rest is history.
Most people in the industry would be working toward not letting that happen again.
Let's hope not. When miners went on a treasure hunt in Western Australia, they